Welcome, my name is Kafui Day. 4th August in Ghana is celebrated as Founders Day. The question is, who founded Ghana? Before we get to the answer with my guest, I'll just remind you that you want to be subscribing to this channel and hitting the notification bell so that when brand new videos come up, you'll be the first to get the information. And now to my guest, who is a lawyer and a historian, a lover of things that happened in the past and how significant they are to the people of today and the future. Yaw Anokye Frimpong. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Happy Founders Day. And for me, the question is, who founded Ghana? It's a simple question, but it has possibly many answers.
Indeed.
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, to start from the
Ghana.
beginning.
Where did the concept of Ghana come from, or the idea of Ghana come from?
It's like asking a lawyer, what is law? You understand? Then you are encouraging him to write a lot of theses because it's a very vexed question. Or asking a philosopher, what is the truth? It's not easy to come by. Now, when you ask anybody who founded Ghana, it is not an easy answer. And that will take you to the beginning of things, as you rightly said. The word, the name, the concept, the entity, Ghana, is first mentioned in the Sahara. Many, many years ago, more than 600 years before Kwame Nkrumah mentioned the word Ghana. At long last, the battle has ended, and Ghana, your beloved nation, is free forever. That was when we knew the word or the name Ghana. It was an empire. Today we say that it is traced to the area between Mali, southern Mauritania, and then the eastern part of Guinea. It was a very vast empire.
This is the Ghana Empire.
The Ghana Empire. And it was the first of the Western Sudanese empires. We had 3 Western Sudanese empires, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. And we are told that Ghana, which was the first of the empires, was an empire noted for gold, very splendid. Anytime the mention of Ghana came in, you immediately thought of gold. And it became associated with us somehow because of certain similarities. For example, the people were surrounded by Muslims, but these people today we call Ghanaians, were identified as people who rather believed in ancestral worship.
Okay, so this is the inhabitants of the Kingdom of Ghana.
Ghana.
Okay.
They believed in ancestral worship. Secondly, because they believed in ancestral worship, they buried the dead with gold. They poured libation. Their women wore earrings, and they wore clothes as most of the Akans and then the Gans and the Ewes do. And they also discovered that some of the people were matrilineal in nature.
Just like the Akans.
Just as the Akans. But the bigger tribe there was called the Soninke, and today we have Gans and others, patrilineal. But the few people there, very, very minute people being matrilineal. And we discovered that we believe that they will be the Akans. And then after some time, the empire fell. It fell because Mali conquered it. And we are told that we continued to stay there until Mansa Musa came and ensured that everybody in the kingdom, in the new empire, Mali, would belong to the Islamic religion.
Mansa Musa is this king who famously went on
the pilgrimage to Mecca
and caused inflation in Egypt for
very good. Took
many
plenty
years.
Of
gold.
Our gold away. He went, and when they weighed the gold, it became the biggest amount that could be imagined anywhere in the world. And we are told that he's the richest man ever in history. But the problem is that he went with all the gold and never came back with it. And Mali was never to become as it was again.
And of course, I think they attracted the attention of the Westerners, and then that's how come we had
Everybody's
the Portuguese
attention.
and
So
all these people coming down.
on one hand, he was a great man. On the other, he did us a big disservice. But what is important is the fact that our people, because of their religion, hated Islam then. Our people will also hate Islam because in those days, if you were a royal, you should ensure that, do you call it knife, the knife or cutlass or machete would never have touched your body. And in Islam, you have to be circumcised.
Indeed.
So in those days, I'm telling you the truth, the Gas and then the Northerners and the Ewes, the Akans, who are all circumcised today, were not. Once you're royal, you should not go through that. And so our people will have to leave that place because we are led by royals. And if my royal will have to be circumcised in order to have his peace of mind, then he will lead me to leave that place entirely. And we came along the Volta. The Volta travels from the north to the south, and we didn't know much geography. The only geography that would lead you secure, you would never fail, is traveling along the river banks, because everybody knows that the river will flow from somewhere as its source, and then the mouth is always the sea. So if you wanted to come down south, just use the river and it would aid you. So that was what we did.
So who were these people who left that ancient kingdom, the Ghana Empire, and then finally found themselves here in modern day Ghana?
Largely, they are we cannot tell exactly, but we can say that the Guans were the first to have left. The Guan people, the Akwapim, Efutu, Ewutu, Enum, Late, Nkonya, Wura. You understand? Yes. Those people. And then the Gonja people. Gonja people in northern Ghana. Yes, they were all part of this. Then after the Guans, we also came. So you will see that these people have language, the languages are very similar. And even when I spoke to many Ewe historians, I discovered that the link was there. The Ewes would tell you they came from a place called Ngochie. And they would tell you that Ngochie was the their eighth settlement when they were coming down. And then why Ngochie? They will explain to you that it's an Akan word because we're all coming together. Why an Akan? We say, the eighth in Akan is called what? Ngochie. Ngochie. And then they will say, no, Ngochie, that's
the town in Togo, yes.
It's called, what is
Ngochie.
it? Very good. So it shows, you see, I want us to think about the unity that existed, the oneness that existed. But the more you come down, the more we expand. That according to the famous Ewe writer Mamata, it was their eighth settlement, and it was Akans who gave it that name. And it shows that they were all together from one source. Now, having reached here, especially among the Akans, they say that they were being chased by men on horseback. And so they got to a place where the horses would not be able to penetrate. That is when they got to the forest belt. And so the Akans settled there, and that was where they had the Bono Techiman kingdom.
Those on horseback, were they from the Burkina Faso area, the Mole Dagbani people?
From the Mole Dagbani people, because they were the remnants of these Malians.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So they were those made to chase us. So many would not go away, like the Gonjas. They stayed. The Gonjas stayed. The Mole Dagbani people stayed. And then the Akans also would come down to the forest zone. And that was where the Akans settled strictly along the Pra of Fin Basin, because they feared leaving the rivers, for agricultural purposes, and then for the fact that you would never stray anywhere. And those of the Akans who went deeper went to the Komoi Bia area, now in central Ivory Coast. But let's come down to our own story. We have started by telling you that the word Ghana is not an innovation. It is variously defined. Some people say it's the land of black people. And that is the reason why the Spanish and then the Portuguese, wherever they found black people, they called them Guineas. And then the English would prefer Ghana. So we have Papua New Guinea, we have Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry,
Equatorial Guinea as well.
Equatorial Guinea, and then we have Ghana. They mean the same thing, meaning the land of black people. Some people also say it means the land of gold, but at least they have the same meaning. And that also shows our nature. We have always been the same. Now, I'm saying that the word Ghana would not be the innovation of anybody, because it was the name of a certain group of people that lived almost 700 years before we came. So it is not a name that anybody coined. Indeed, in those days when the CPP wanted to win election in Ghana, they said Ghana stands for God has appointed Nkrumah already. Please, it's never that acronym. So that means that making the new country called Ghana is Nkrumah's own coinage. That one can never be accepted anywhere. Just as saying Buzia's name, which is actually from Busia, like a loan or a debt among the accounts. Some people, best university scholar in Africa. It's just a political word, a term, and you should not take that seriously. Now, back home, everybody would know that we were living peacefully until trade set in. Now, trade has always taken place on this land. We are told that the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians were coming to the West African coast, and some of our people were traveling even to South America. Trade has always taken place. Then the first one we could imagine in history was the silent trade, where the Europeans would come, not land actually. They will be on the sea and then light fires for our people to realize that, the people have come. Our trade partners have arrived. Then what they needed from our end, always things like dried pepper and then gold, if there were diamonds or anything that they needed from here, cotton, things that they needed from our coast. These people will put all these things there in lots. Then they will set fires again to tell them that you should also bring your goods. And then the people will retreat to the forest. And then these people will come and put their own European goods, blankets, snaps, liquor, and mirror, all the European goods that we also needed. They will also put this thing down.
I wonder how they determined their exchange rates, because they were not speaking any mutually intelligible languages. It was silent.
That's why it was called the silent trade. But it was mutually intelligible. That when you come and you see that your lot is still standing there, nobody has picked it. It means come and top
Add some more.
Add some more.
All right. Okay.
So it continued, not knowing these people were studying us.
The Europeans
were studying us. They were learning a lot about us. So why do you think they will come all the way from where they will come from to our place to trade with us? I mean, they needed us more. They were studying that. Then what happened was some time along the line, some of their people who really decided to come and stay among our people, so that anytime, learned our language, so that anytime it became difficult, you could fall on the one who had come to stay among us, married our women. So we started having mulattoes. Then when they knew they could communicate intelligently with us, that was the time they brought Azambuja, Don Diogo de Azambuja. And we are told that Christopher Columbus was on that trip. He was part of the trip to meet the people at the time. And the coast. And we are told that they first went to Shama. And the people were very smart. They were sensible. So it means we are talking about who founded Ghana.
Indeed.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
The Shama people, looking at the massive ships on the sea and the gorgeous manner in which they were dressed, said, no, we cannot accept these people. And gave information everywhere along the coast that nobody should accept these foreigners to make them stay on their land.
Why?
Very highly philosophical answer. They say that you can see that these people have all the intellect in the world. Look at the way they are dressed. And look at that, their house on the sea, the ship. You can see that the people have got wisdom. They have got everything that man needs to survive except land. That is why they want a place to stay. So the moment you allow them to stay on their land, they will use their superior wisdom to drive you away and you have nothing to live on. So nobody should accept them except through the existing barter system. So the Shama people drove them away. And then the next stop after Shama was obviously Elmina. They came, got down and spoke to the chief there, Nana Kwame Ansah. And we know the story, F.K. Bua's history from primary school. Now, look at Azambuja's request that we have always been coming and going. Why don't we stay, build a house, pump in a lot of goods so that you will not wait for 6 months, 1 year or 2 years.
For more supplies.
Yeah, for more supplies. This one, you always have the supply. You just tell us what you need and then they come. And you too, once you have the goods, we also keep buying and then you will see the, what do you call it, buying and selling, flowing and everybody becoming richer and richer. Kwame Ansah said, no, you are making a mistake. You see, you spoke about coming and going. It is the relationship between the land and the sea. The sea waves will come down to the land. And the beauty of it is that no matter how it rolls to the land, it will go back.
It never stays there.
It never stays there. So there is that relationship. And you can identify the land, you can identify the sea, and then that mutuality between them, that play. And that is what I want to continue. Kwame Ansah would not understand. And then Kwame Ansah was looking, listen very carefully. Kwame Ansah was looking at the beauty, the glamour of these Europeans, how they were dressed.
Just like the Shama people were also looking at them.
Were looking at them, but the Shama looking at them. And then these people looking at it and say, look at the way you are dressed and look at how almost naked my people are. What Kwame Ansah did not realize was that the people he referred to as naked were wearing big gold bracelets, chains, big gold, solid gold. Our women, you know, those days, they didn't have this. They had something that Akans called, the Fantis called amoise, you know, and then the Ashanti say tam.
Like a covering around the private parts?
The private part. So, Kwame Ansah will see it as nakedness. But these white people realize that the one that goes around the waist to support it was full of gold.
Wow.
You understand? So
they were calculating the money.
They were calculating the value of it.
But because it was common to Kwame,
this one was nothing.
It's nothing.
You
it
know,
is
but the gold,
the support. Yeah.
Everybody, gold earrings, gold everywhere. You know, golden crowns everywhere. This man, he thinks his people are naked. They were not naked. You understand? So the more he thought his people were far naked and then they were nobodies, the more these people thought, no, this is a gold mine.
Is it a question of Kwame Ansah not appreciating the value of what his people were wearing or what his people
when
had?
When you are born into anything,
it's commonplace for you.
Yes, you don't value what you are born into. You don't. You understand? If you have 100 of this, you would want a batakari smoke. You want smoke, suit and other things, but never the same thing because you have got 100. Because at that time, look at the name they gave to that place. Eventually, when he succeeded, he wrote home that they have found a place called the mine, La Mina, the mine full of gold. People, but even dead bodies are buried with gold, and the Europeans will not even believe that.
The mine.
The mine, Lamina, which today has become Elmina. So that was how it began. And I'm saying that if you are talking about the founders, don't forget Nana Kwame and Sam, because in every good history book covering slavery, colonialism, and black emancipation, they start from Kwame Nkrumah's statement that the moment we allow you to stay here, you will push us away, like the land allowing the sea to keep coming to cover the entire land. And indeed, ultimately, that was what happened. So you will see that an African more than 600 years ago was, and an illiterate person was highly philosophical. He knew the import of the white man staying with us here.
Should we also recognize the statements of the king of Shama also?
The Shama people.
They also...
Yeah, because for them, it was not one king. All of them saw that, oh, no, this man, these people, no, this won't happen. So, and then gave information. I'm sure they sent information to Accra, to voter, to everywhere.
Watch these guys.
Those people who have always become, don't receive them. But before they could get to Accra or voter region, these people, the Elmina people had received them there. And then we will say that they put up a magnificent structure there, which is the first European building outside Europe. The first European edifice outside Europe is the Elmina Castle.
Yeah.
That is in George, that huge mansion there. And we are also told it is the first European building in the southern hemisphere of the world. So it's a very historic, a very classical building, which is left there for everybody to see.
Since the 15th century.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was what happened. Now, when these white people or Europeans started working here, I told you they were studying us. So from the silent trade comes the physical direct contact. So what will happen? This time, no more barter. The money economy would come in. The money economy would come in. And then they discovered one thing, which is even in the Bible, it's in the Quran, it's everywhere, it's part of European history. We being neighbors, definitely at one point in time or the other, we will be fighting. And then they discovered one thing with the African, that we believed in human sacrifice. So whenever there was war, let's say between I don't want to mention any
of the ethnic groups.
Yeah, but between ethnic group A and B, and then A was able to defeat B, those who will be captured, they use them for menial works, and then whenever there's festival or a big king dies, then you sacrifice
your head.
So the people will come in to say that, no, we need those you capture in war, whereby they will be safe, they will be protected to be used somewhere. Not just needing them. Needing them means giving them protection. No, we will buy from you. So it means that this time you are not destroying the person. The person you capture in war is of great value. So he becomes a piece of goods. You understand? So this led to massive wars on the African continent.
In order to procure people for sale to the Europeans.
Very good. Because when you talk about trade, it is just a mechanism between buying and selling. And what is it? Based on a certain commodity. And for as long as the demand is there must be supply.
So human beings, Africans became commodities.
Commodities, yes, because there was massive demand for slaves, goods. And then our people too were very ready to supply.
Didn't they realize what they were doing to their societies?
Initially, I would say they didn't realize. And that is where we are very guilty. We found ourselves very, very guilty. Because it was not just selling vanquished tribes, but sometimes when you have plenty wives, I'm told, I read a piece of Akwamu history, where a man would marry plenty wives, and then the ones who always make demands, demand for money, demand for this, demand. Then you arrange with the white men. So you travel with that wife to one of the forts, James Fort or Christianburg, as if you wanted to do shopping for her. And then within the fort, you already make arrangement for her price. And then before she realizes he had been grabbed,
Oh, wow.
and the husband is left.
It's gone.
And sometimes your own child too, far away from, let's say, Peki or Keta. And say the boy is very rude and insubordinate. You put some load on his head that we are going to this place. As for today, I beg you, go with me, okay? If you're able to lure him, you send him to the fort, prison state, and that will be his end. They will ship him away. And then, in slavery, they didn't like people who were older. They like young, virile men, women, who could work very hard and also produce more children. So that
more
they
labor.
would not need to do labor, and they wouldn't need to come here all the time. So back to your question, I believe that we were very wicked to our own, extremely wicked. So if tribe A is selling tribe B to the Americas, you can see how wicked we were. And then selling our own children just because we felt that they were they were very insensitive to our interests. And with that, Europe and America will develop because Europeans will come and buy human beings from here and send to the Americas, which had just been discovered. Because I told you that Christopher Columbus was on the trip that came to the Gold Coast. And look at the name they gave it. Lamina, and the area is called what? Gold Coast, full of gold everywhere.
Gold everywhere.
So they had discovered America, which was the new world, vast area of land. What would they do? They would start planting raw materials and then ship to Europe, fruits and all the things you are talking
Sugar,
about, plenty
all
of food,
things, yeah.
It will get spoiled. So that gave them, there's this account proverb, Ohiyama Adwenjen. Once you have plenty food and plenty goods from America, we have to think of storage. So it made these people to relax and then begin to think of inventions. You understand? Because they've got money, they've got the farms, they've got continuous flow of cheap labor. So let's use our minds, our acumen to think of scientific inventions. So in a short time, the Industrial Revolution started in the UK and it spread to Germany, France, Russia, everywhere. So you will see that it is the same Americans. It was the British people who went to found America and a few French in Canada. So basically, America is Europe, offshoot of Europe. So slaves from Africa, goods to Europe, and then the raw materials to Europe, and then the finished products to Africa to foist the goods on us.
Triangular trade.
The triangular trade to compel us to buy. So no matter what, you will have to buy. So that was how the African continent became a fertile ground for all European goods, and that enriched them a lot.
Has anything changed?
Unfortunately, not much. It has even got worse. So my brother, what happened was that they used the silent trade to steady us. They used the slave trade to make us very weak, to make us very, very weak, to hate each other the more, so that when an Ewe man sees a phantom, I sees him as an enemy, because he will fight me and capture me and sell me to those people. So we became enemies to each other. Unlike previously, that we traded among ourselves, even if there was war. How long was this war? But now it became constant and continuous, because we had to satisfy somebody's whims and caprices. So the slave trade depleted the African continent until this man, Louis Farrakhan, will say something. He says the Jews were just a handful of people living in Egypt. Nobody was harming them or disturbing them in any manner. With that, God said, I have heard a cry of my people, Hebrews. So he sent Moses and Aaron to go and save them. In our case, 300 years of slavery, and we never had any Moses or Aaron to come and save us. And the dark continent became almost depleted until men of good conscience like Granville Sharp, William Wilberforce, and later Lord Mansfield, who gave that famous decision that slavery was not good and abhorrent to the very conscience of mankind. And then slave trade ended 1807 thereabout, and then eventually the whole world thought of this abolition slavery. No, the Europeans were not ready to let it go.
Because it was a very lucrative business.
So they had to find another way, something new to replace slavery.
I know for a fact that French landowners, slave owners in Haiti were compensated when slavery was abolished.
And you know,
paid a lot of
Britain
money.
took Britain. It took Britain more than 100 years for Barclays Bank and others to complete the payment of reparations to those who set free their slaves. And the slaves never got even 1 penny. The slaves themselves didn't have anything, but those
owners
who were asked to free them were rather given money. And then certain teams, football team, Liverpool and others, came up of slavery, slave business. The rich people, Barclays Bank itself was set up by rich people, millionaires who had made so much money from slavery and put their money together. The British Royal House, all of them, everybody was into slavery. So when the whole thing was abolished, especially by that famous decision by Lord Mansfield, they had to go around the law. They met in Berlin. You know the famous Berlin Conference. So you see, 1807, they abolished it. By 1837, it had become universally accepted that slavery was evil and then illegal. Then only a few years, 1884, the Berlin Conference started to partition Africa among the European powers, the partition of Africa. And we also call it in history the Scramble for Africa. After the slave trade had ended, now they needed actual territories here. So you know that Togo, the Germans will go there. If it is France, they will go to Ivory Coast, we'll go here, all those things. So
they cut it up like a cake, a wedding cake.
And the sadness that, my brother, philosophically, they decided that if you are cutting it up, do not give respect to ethnic identities, but ensure that at all material times, the boundaries would affect tribes, would be in their middle, so that the one on the left, the one on the right, and the one on the left would fight between themselves.
Just like it's with the Nzema people, half of
half
it
in Ivory Coast,
half in Ghana.
Bassam, Assini,
and the Ewe also, Togo.
Just too bad.
The
and
Dagari,
then the Bono people, the same.
Yeah,
the capital of the Bono ethnic group is called Bono Manso. It's in Ivory Coast. You understand? Then German, that fought Ashanti consistently and should have been part of us, is also there.
The Dagari is also
the same thing. And then the Moli Dabani people. The Moses should have been part of the Dagomba Mamprisi people. And then they are there. And then go to the Volta region, is even worse. You go to Benin, between Benin and Nigeria, is the same thing. That was what they did to us. So that to this day, there will always be that intertribal fighting. Then it helps the big man at the top to be relaxed and enjoy. So that was what happened. That made us to come under the white people.
So the Berlin Conference of 1884 was just critical to Africa?
Extremely crucial, because that was the conference that prevented Europeans from fighting among themselves. But for the Berlin Conference, the First World War would have started earlier, because everybody wanted to have a stake here.
They were hungry for Africa.
Everybody was ready to have a stake here. You see, the Ashanti Empire fell in 1874, the Sagrenti War. The moment the empire fell, the French came in. Baoulé, Anyin,
Yes.
and then then Zemas,
Yeah.
The
council were in Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire, they were part of the Ashanti Empire. Immediately, when they saw that the Ashanti power over them had fallen, the French came in, made negotiations, and took them away. So the British realized that they would lose every ethnic group that was serving Ashanti. And eventually, Ashanti too would be lured to go there, because where you have taken my son, I also want to be.
Of course.
You understand? So the British knew that if they did not do anything about this situation, Ashanti itself eventually would go there.
Ashanti would have been speaking French.
By now, yes. And if Ashanti goes, it means the other ethnic groups that Ashanti was controlling, the Bono, the Achem, the Akwapim, Akwamu, and then Denchira, all of them would have gone. So you see the story.
Yeah.
And that was why a man like George Ekem Ferguson becomes so relevant. This man knew so many languages. He was a very young man. He knew several languages.
He was a Gold Coaster.
A Gold Coaster, a fancy man, from South Point. This man knew several languages. And the British sent him as a surveyor over there. And then also as a negotiator to tell the chiefs in the north, and not only the north, he started working in Ashanti. At that time, Bono, Ahafo, they were part of Ashanti. That's why he started working for. He saw that Brekum wanted to join the French, so he had to go and then negotiate. The Gonjas, he had to go and negotiate. And then Northern Volta region, today Oti region. The man went to all those places to ensure that they would not be part of the German area.
What was his assignment? He was surveying the land for the British.
Surveying lands for the British. That is the primary assignment. And as much as possible, because he had efficient negotiating skills, to be able to lure these people to come to our place and tell them why they should not join the French. That the English were very liberal people, very religious people, very kind people, very humane people, unlike the French who were using the direct rule system, the assimilation, bullying people and enslaving people. The English were opposed. So by so doing, he claimed plenty land for the British. And it was in the course of this service that the slave raiders, Samori and Babatu, killed him. His grave is still at Wa. And that is why people who know me know that I always protest against Ghana naming an university at Wa after C.K. Tedam, whose highest achievement in life was chairman of Council of Elders of the New Patriotic Party. You understand?
You think Ekem Ferguson deserves that honor more?
He's a man of international stature. You understand? Ferguson did not hail from my village, Axim. No. I'm talking, we are building a country. We are not building a party. We are building a country. We are not building a tribe. You understand? So if Ekem Ferguson, who helped for a while to become part of the Gold Coast, now Ghana, lies there, and then somebody who became chairman of a political party's Council of Elders would have his name decorated and celebrated. In fact, if really we have ghosts, this man will be turning in his grave.
So your argument is that George Ekem Ferguson
was the founder.
A founder of
because the subject is, we are talking about who founded Ghana.
So he's one of them.
Yes. So we have mentioned Nana Kwame Ansah, and I have mentioned a person like George Ekem Ferguson. Yes. But coming to where I left off, so we now begin to have different countries where they found plenty gold. They will call it Gold Coast. Where they found plenty ivory or elephant, they will call it Ivory Coast.
That's Cote d'Ivoire.
You understand? Huh? Where they find the river Niger, everywhere, it will be Niger. Or where the Niger flows to so many tributaries and distributaries, then that will be a Niger area, Nigeria. River Senegal and Gambia, Senegambia.
There was Slave Coast too.
And then slave coast along the Dahomey area, plenty slaves. So we call it slave coast. So that was how systematically we began having our names. And then identity.